I might start at something fairly high level, and apologies I was a little late in. What is the government's vision for housing? Some of the language of the Minister and of senior members of Cabinet would appear to be that the Commonwealth's actually trying to get out of the housing affordability space. Probably best to you, Senator Fierravanti-Wells. Does the government actually have a national housing affordability strategy, or do you believe that it's best just left to the states and territories?
Well, we will be undertaking a review of housing and homelessness, and the Minister has stated publicly that there is a need to review housing and homelessness policies and programs to ensure increased housing supply and improve affordability. And this review will include an examination of the National Rental Affordability Scheme. And I'm sure that we will come to that later as well, but our concern being to reduce, limit the trading of incentives, reduce red tape and increase delivery. So the review will outline the direction in which the government is seeking to drive housing reform, and will also feed into the white papers on reform of the Federation and taxation.
All right, thank you, Senator. Chair, would you rather that we hold off questions on National Rental Affordability Scheme till a bit later in the morning? Is that how you would rather run?
I think there's going to be a whole section on that.
Okay, that's fine. Well, let's stay with this review then. That's into housing affordability and homelessness. Is the broadest scope of the portfolio, or is it narrower, the review that you're just outlining to us there?
Well, my understanding, as I have said, it will review housing and homelessness policies. We are very concerned that over during the Labor years, we had a revolving door of 6 ministers over 6 years.
So you just abolished the minister,
and we are working hard in this space, and the minister will have more to say in relation to this.
I guess if you just abolish the housing minister altogether, then you don't have to worry about the revolving door.
Senator Ludlam, we are first trying to clean up the mess that 6 years and 6 ministers left us.
I could recite your talking points in my sleep.
If you're going to make political points in your questions...
Heaven forbid a politician would make a political point.
Well, then don't complain when Senator Fierravanti-Wells responds.
Meeting? What are you doing?
I'm just adding helpful commentary.
Senator Zelja, would you allow Senator Ludlam to get on with his
Thank you, Chair.
questions?
What are the terms of reference and what's the timeline for this review?
Well, we are currently determining how best to undertake the review, and those matters are under consideration. Okay, so you've been in government for nearly 10 months. You've abolished nearly everybody with any expertise outside the department on housing, affordability Senator Ludlam,
and homelessness.
That's your assertion.
Well, it is. Yes, that's right. That's exactly what I'm doing. National Housing Supply Council is gone. Basically anybody, you've abolished the National Rental Affordability Scheme, or at least taken it out of the budget papers. You've been in government nearly 10 months and you still don't know what this review is going to canvass. Is that a reasonable summary of your progress to date?
We are currently determining how best to undertake the review, Senator Ludlam.
What's taking so long?
Well, we are currently considering the matter.
That's a great answer. Do you propose that there will be public consultations and or process for public submissions?
Well, in due course the Minister will have more to say.
We don't even know that. That's amazing. Any idea who has been appointed to conduct the review?
As I just said, Senator Ludlam, the matter is under consideration and the Minister will have more to say on that matter. I'm sure that I'm sure he will take your concerns into consideration, Senator Ludlam.
We'll see, won't we? Okay, so we just don't have anything yet. Is there a view within government that the Commonwealth should simply get out of this space and just delegate everything back to the states and territories? Well,
as I indicated to you, we believe that there needs to be a review of housing and homelessness policies and programs. We are now undertaking that review, and as I indicated to you, we are currently determining how best to undertake that process.
Great. We're waiting on the edge of our seats. Do you acknowledge, does the government acknowledge that there is a housing affordability crisis in Australia? We have, as I've indicated to you, our policy, the Minister has publicly stated that our national housing, affordable housing agreement needs improvement. He wants to incentivise performance, he wants to encourage competition, and he wants to improve reporting and tie funding to outcomes. Maybe let me try and phrase it in a different way. Does the government acknowledge that there's a housing affordability crisis in Australia?
Well, as I've indicated to you, the Minister has publicly stated that the housing agreements do need improvement. We are currently undertaking a review of housing and homelessness. As I've indicated to you, the process is being considered, and in due course the Minister will make announcements in relation to it. Senator Ludlam, I can't give you any more than that.
I gather.
I'm happy to refer the matter to the Minister, and I'm sure in due course, if the Minister has anything further to add, that he will do so.
Not detecting any particular sense of urgency, let's just put it that way. You've abolished...
Senator Ludlam, if I can summarise it this way, we inherited a mess and we're now trying to address it.
So I could recite your talking points in my sleep. You've abolished the National Housing Supply Council. I know in my office we found that source of independent data on the supply gap, the affordability supply gap, extremely valuable. When will you next be reporting on the National Housing Supply Gap, and where exactly are you getting your data from?
Senator, matters of housing supply are actually matters in the Treasury portfolio, and questions on the National Housing Supply Council should be directed towards Treasury.
I would have thought that you would have found their input reasonably valuable as well, but that's fair enough. It's always puzzled me as to why it's parked in Treasury, but nonetheless that's where it is. Where do you in the department get your information from about housing supply now that that Supply Council has been trashed?
There's quite a wealth of data that's published by the Australian Bureau of Statistics on housing supply. There's also a range of private market providers on housing supply data.
So we're getting by with what we have. Okay, so back to you, Minister. How important is evidence-based policy to this government?
Senator Ludlam, clearly our decisions are based on best evidence available, but as I have indicated earlier, as part of this process, the Minister has committed not only to working closely with the states and territory governments, but as well as public, private and community sectors in relation to future housing and homelessness needs.
So that was a cautious yes. Evidence is important in forming housing affordability policy to this government.
Well, I think it's a statement of the obvious, Senator.
No, believe me, it's really not. That's why I'm asking. If it's a yes, just...
Well, as I've indicated to you, the Minister has indicated publicly that he will be working closely with the states and territories, as well as the public, private and community sectors on future housing and homelessness needs. And that, of course, infers, Senator Ludlam, that he will gain information as part of that process.
Okay. So what is the current number of homeless people in Australia?
The ABS census reports on homelessness every 5 years using the census.
Yeah.
It's 105,000 people in round terms, Senator.
Well, it was in 2011.
That's the latest data that's available on that, Senator. There's no other data that goes to the number of homelessness people other than the census data.
So we have to rely on data points that are 5 years apart and imperfect, I guess.
That's correct, Senator.
Okay. What's the government's plan to provide homes and services to these homeless Australians?
We have... Sorry, Mr Palmer, did you want to start?
I was just going to say that the provision of homelessness services and the planning of homelessness service delivery is primarily a matter for the states and territory governments. And that question would be best directed to them.
You want me to travel around the country asking the states and territories?
I did not say that, Senator.
Okay, just tell me what you did say.
I said that the question of what services will be provided is a matter for state and territory governments. They are the direct service provider and the funder of direct services in housing and homelessness.
You're aware that the Commonwealth to date does provide significant amounts of funding?
We provide it to the
services.
states.
Yeah.
And the states administer the program, Senator.
And you have no visibility of how they're using that money or what kind of services they're providing, whether they're coping, whether they're overwhelmed?
We have some information. There is the National Homelessness Services Collection run by the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. But primarily the states are responsible for that service delivery.
Can you tell us the current gap of affordable and available rental homes in Australia and what the government's plan is for filling that gap? So 105 odd thousand homeless people as of 2011. What's the current affordable rental supply gap?
Senator, you're going to questions of housing supply again, which are questions primarily for the Treasury.
They would provide you...
Your last question in this section, Senator Ludlam.
They would provide you with the data. So I understand that the research is meant to come from Treasury, even though the government went and abolished the body that was doing it. But presumably you can't operate in blissful ignorance of the National Rental Affordability Supply Gap. I get that the data collection is done elsewhere, but you must know, and it's your job to put the plan together, I would have thought, to close that gap.
Can I just make a comment, Senator Ludlam?
You could answer my question.
One of the important aspects of housing supply is what happens at the local government level in terms of residential development, and perhaps you might look closer to home, Senator Ludlam, at some of your Green councillors and some of their activities, especially in New South Wales, where they fight development every step of the way. So perhaps you might look closer to home, Senator Ludlam, in relation to some of your assertions.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Seselja.
Thank you. I might